Okay, we want to go on into chapter 17 now, and we're going to make kind of a giant step forward. I think I told you last week that, and that's why we sort of paused for a little bit of a review, with the, we've really learned all the forms there are in the so-called Kal conjugation. We've learned the perfect, imperfect, imperative, infinitives, participles. We have the basic forms down. And you've been filling in all those boxes, but the one box that hasn't changed is the box that said Kal. Now we're going to learn the other so-called conjugations that exist in the language so that we've got the entire paradigm. A word about conjugation. We've called this the this isn't a congregation, but it's a conjugation, as in conjugating verbs. The conjugations are really different verb patterns or systems that can change slightly, not the meaning of the verb, but in a sense the way the verb is understood. By this I mean, for example, the difference between active or passive or reflexive. So the vocabulary that we learn doesn't suddenly change when we change conjugations, but the way the meaning of the word is applied and functions as a different verb form will. Different books use different terminology for the conjugations. Some verbs or some grammars will call them stems. Some will call them systems. David, what's your wisdom on this?
Well, I always use the word stem for the three basic
patterns.
Yeah,
okay,
you know,
all right.
The base, intensive, and causative, and then the word pattern for the individual expression.
Okay. When we'll get into the diagram he's describing in a minute. The Hebrew word is binyan, which is from the verb to build, bana, and means sort of a house, a structure, if you will, a framework for this. But for all practical purposes, we're going to call them conjugations. And if you look, for example, at, well, let's, here's how, if you look, well, let's go to page 242. I was going to do this in a minute, but let's do it now. If, I'm sorry, not 242, page 240. If you look at the appendix in the back of the book, you'll see that Appendix 3 gives you the regular verbs, and reading across the page now, you see in addition to Kal, Nifal, Piel, Puol, Hifil, Hofal, and Hithpael, don't panic. There are 7 conjugations. We've learned 1. That means there are 6 to go. But you already know more than half of the material you need to know. Actually, you probably know more like 80% of what you need to know. And in another 20 minutes, I think that'll make sense to you. Okay? But this gives you an overview of where we're going from here in filling out the other so-called derived conjugations.